segment this morning, and we're glad to have you on board. If you're catching us on the web, that's great news. If you're listening to this program on Patriot Radio, that's Patriot Radio or patriotfb.com, or on constitutionclub.ning.com. Patriot FB Radio or Patriot Radio is also just kicking off, and we encourage you to participate with that as well. But if you're listening to us on any of those programs, I appreciate it, and I'm grateful and thankful that you are. We're going to talk this segment about the FCC net neutrality and how this is a monopoly in the making. And what I want you to realize is that the FCC, first and foremost, let's understand something. Congress has twice said no to the FCC trying to give itself authority over the internet, number one. And also, twice the courts have overruled the FCC in their policy rules and regulations, which sought to subvert and go around Congress to do what they wanted again, even though Congress told them not to. So Congress told them not to twice. Then twice they tried to do it anyway through rules and regulations that the courts turned around and said, you don't have the right to do that. But that's not good enough. They're not happy. They're not satisfied. Reminds me of the old soft shoe shuffle phrase, say you're not happy, say you're not satisfied, tell you what I'm going to do. It's always the opening gambit for a con man. Well, the truth of the matter is that the FCC cannot make a legitimate and valuable argument for web regulation other than government control to enable their monopolies and their cronies and their favored pals. Why do I say that? Well, look at your phone company. That's a monopoly. There's only one, and your prices are still $18 or something per phone. Because according to them, we're getting reimbursed for our embedded plant cost. Do you know how many times those phone lines have been paid for since 1908? Please. Innovation, creativity, and business opportunities. The internet has made more billionaires than anything else, any other industry, any other method on the face of the planet. It's created business opportunity for small businesses. It's created phenomenal business opportunities for large businesses. I don't even necessarily agree with them all. You know, Google, I think, has become a monster. But that's not the point. You see, the point is that anytime government wants to regulate something, it is creating a monopoly, not to benefit you, but to benefit their cronies or to meet some ideological goal. And that's what this is about. And any of that innovation, any of that creativity, any of that business opportunity, any of that development of wealth didn't happen because of government's intervention. It happened because of the lack of government intervention. All those who say big government is good need only look over at the internet to recognize the folly of their words. So let me put it for you this way. Tom Wheeler is an ideological hack. He's the head of the FCC, which first and foremost has no constitutional authority to exist. It is an extra-constitutional federal government agency. The airwaves don't belong to Tom and the Obamaites. The airwaves belong to Americans, and we shouldn't be we shouldn't be limited by the Federal Communications Commission to how and under what circumstances we use them. There is no such thing as a monopoly without government's assistance, support, and creation. End of discussion. If you always had an open free market, and I know the anti-capitalists out there are pulling their hair out saying, that's not true. You know why you even have the right to take a deep breath? Because we've never had that. We have never had laissez-faire capitalism. We have always had a mixed system which encompassed both free markets and then government's intervention in the marketplace to benefit their pals or themselves. We have never had true laissez-faire capitalism. Ever, ever, ever. So all those who would argue that it doesn't work, the Keynesians and all that nonsense, you're all smoking dope. Because the truth is, we've never actually put it to the test. And we have put your method to the test, and it has been left us wanting. It has been an epic and total failure. Any attempt by the FCC to regulate the internet, to attempt to make it something that it is not, to attempt to try to enhance their pals and their cronies and their donors, their employers, their bribists, with some additional benefit, it should be met by the public with a backlash that has so much force to it, that is so injurious, so dangerous, and so meaningful that it shakes the foundations of this nation. Twice, Congress had said the FCC has no place in the internet. It's not a public utility, and you cannot regulate it. And we can look at the public utilities it does regulate, and none of it's to your benefit. None of it's good. Twice, the courts have gone to the FCC and said, you don't have this power over this issue. So twice the courts have said, you're acting unconstitutionally without authority. Twice Congress has said, and we're not giving you the authority you're asking for. So you can go back to the court and say, see, now we have the permission from the people over at Congress. Four attempts. Now a fifth. And this should tell you that this is a thinly veiled attempt by the FCC to gain control of something they can't tolerate. And I'm going to tell you why they can't. The opposition is using it to prove them incompetent, incapable, corrupt, abusive of their power, and tyrannical. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the entire thing in a nutshell. If you want a gigantic worldwide telephone-like system monopoly, then perhaps the FCC proposals make good sense to you. But ask yourself if the phone company monopoly is good for you or if it's good for the phone company. I mean, you're a captive audience. Where are you going to go? You don't have a choice. Those aren't legitimate arguments, I hear. Okay, so let me ask you this. Then why has the mobile phone become so ubiquitous so quickly? Oh, that's right. There's this thing called competition. That's not why. It's just because they're portable. Well, there is some convenience to the portability factor. But there's also the fact that you can get a mobile phone for about $40 a month and have unlimited telephone calls, including long distance, and it will cost you at least twice that at home. And you can't even take it with you. Hello? Tom Wheeler has no right to try to attempt to defy Congress on this for the third time. He has no right to attempt to violate the court's orders to him to back off. But that's typical of this administration's coward-piven strategy. You just rename it something else and hit them with it again. And you keep on hitting them over and over and over and over. Sometimes you try to sneak it through in the dark. Sometimes you try to sneak it in on the flank. Sometimes you try to sneak it in by getting an insider in through the midden heap door who can unlock the gates for you at night. But no matter what, you just keep hitting them with it over and over again. And I got to tell you, nothing good comes from government which attempts to do, microscopic brain surgery, but uses a hammer, a sickle, and an axe to do it. And that's government. Period. How do I know why the real issue here is the internet and their desire and need to regulate it, to silence opposition? I'm going to tell you why. There's a new article that is out on InfoWars, but it's taken from a 96-page internal New York Times report that was gotten somehow by BuzzFeed. And it was an internal report, and I don't know how BuzzFeed got it, and I don't really care. I'm just interested in the fact that they got it. And here's what this New York Times memo says. It admits that the mainstream media, the Ministry of Propaganda, that's New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Miami Herald, all of these newspapers, the Philadelphia Inquirer, right? St. Louis Post-Dispatch, all of the mainstream media propaganda rags, not to mention ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSLSD, and Fox News. They're admitting in this memo, they're admitting that they are being made redundant by a new alternative media. And the truth of the matter is, they're pissed. They are angry, not because they're losing monetary value, although that's a major problem. I mean, look at any newspaper in the country today, and they are doing, the numbers are unbelievably bad. But see, the real reason that the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda is losing ground is because they refuse to do what they have been created and chartered to do. To act not as a mouthpiece for the state, but as an adversary, a watchdog. Quis custodiet, ipsos custodes. Who will watch the watchers? Well, here's the solution. We've found a way to get around the watchers. The watchers are them, and they've sold us out, and they've taken... You see, think of it like this. The mainstream media and the Ministry of Propaganda are supposed to be the guardians, the jailers of government. Keep them in line. Keep them locked in the cell. But they've taken the bribe, and they have colluded with the prisoner to let it escape. And now they're pissed. Because, one, we know they've done it. Two, we've found an alternative way to padlock the door and make sure they don't have the key. This was a 96-page internal New York Times report. And in it, they bemoan the fact that the newspaper is, quote, is hampered primarily by its own storied culture because it's staffed by a cadre of editors who remain unfamiliar with the web and social media. In other words, they don't get what the alternative media is kicking their butt at. They know how to print it in a newspaper. And they don't understand why they cannot shift with the public. It's not really that they're not able to shift with the public. What it really is, I mean, that's part of it, right? Try to go to the New York Times and read half the articles. They won't let you. You have to pay a subscription fee. They're not making their money on ad clicks. They're making their money. Go to the Wall Street Journal and try to read anything other than an opinion article. You cannot. They want you to subscribe. Why is it that Fox News, to use an example, doesn't stream itself on the internet? There's no reason why it couldn't. It wants to force you to watch it on cable TV. Well, I don't really want to sit in front of a box to catch an article or a story or a news flash, and most of America doesn't. Why could you not just have CNN stream into your tablet? Nothing barring CNN from doing that. Except CNN. You know why? Because you can't watch the commercials. Hello? The truth is, the FCC needs net neutrality, and I'm going to tell you why they do. Their masters are dictating it. And that's the simple truth. Here's what net neutrality does. It would ban broadband providers from blocking or slowing down specific websites, and it allows them to charge other websites a priority fee. So think of it like a high occupancy vehicle lane on the thruway. Right? If you're willing to pay a little bit more, then we'll give you priority access. Now, at first glance you may say, well, I don't see what the problem is. The problem is that even those companies like Netflix out there, who are Netflix is probably one of the broadest users of the internet because so many people watch movies over it. They're a data pig. And they say, we don't want that. Because what's going to happen is they're going to use it against us. And see, what you're doing is you're making the mistake of looking at this from the wrong perspective. I bought a connection. That's all I bought. And I bought a speed. Whether I fill that speed all the time or only 3 hours out of the day, I bought access. And at a specific size and shape. That means I'm entitled to use that size and shape all the time, not only some of the time. Now, whether or not the company agrees with that, who sold it to me, they're hoping I won't use it all the time. In fact, they are selling the bandwidth to you on the same principle that the Federal Reserve does fractional reserve banking. But the truth of the matter is, you bought the time. You bought the pipe. You can fill that pipe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if that's what you want to do. And you shouldn't have to pay more to fill the pipe you've already paid for. Now, the other side of net neutrality is even worse. And there's an article out there in the Wall Street Journal that talks about it. It's called The Internet's 51 New Regulators. The FCC goes ahead with its plan to control web pricing, which is how government always gets its, mitts in the door. And he makes a very, very interesting analogy. And by the way, almost all of the past FCC commissioners are against this. And many who sit on the board currently are against it. And, you know, the truth of the matter is these articles are worthwhile reading for you because, you know, you really, in order to understand what is being proposed, you need to take a look at these because it's going to matter to you. And if you don't think it will matter, you're making a serious mistake. The idea of this is that the monsters, the Googles and so forth of the world, they can do great, and it will stifle small startups. It will stifle anybody who can't pay the ticket. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what made Google what it is. It started from nothing. AOL, same thing. Yahoo, same thing. There's no excuse for the FCC to get involved in the internet. The only thing they can do is ruin it. Forget content. Forget the fact that it's used by, many, many people for pornography and all kinds of negative stuff, including, Facebook and all this nonsense. That's not the point. The point is it has changed everything about our society. It does hold great promise for us in a number of different areas. In fact, you're listening and watching this program because of it. But if suddenly I have to pay priority rates to get you this program, I'm already running at a deficit, for crimini's sake. How could I possibly afford that? And this show would be silenced. Aha. Now you're beginning to get the handle on it. You can only play if you're a big boy. Interesting. Every word that comes out of their mouth that tells you this is supposed to be a way to keep it open and public, and it's all lies. All of it. The internet's done fine without government regulation. Wheeler, FCC, federal government, keep your hands off. We'll be back in just a moment.